The Galactic Council chamber floated in the heart of a dying red star, a colossal ring of black metal and living crystal suspended in solar fire. Inside, thousands of alien delegates filled the tiers of the endless circular hall. Some were tall and luminous, others small and covered in silver scales, their voices blending into a constant whisper that echoed like wind through stone. The chamber lights dimmed as a single figure stepped into the center stage. A human. Ambassador Rian Vale stood beneath the blazing sigil of the council. His suit was dark, simple, unadorned, his hands steady by his sides. Behind him hovered a faint hologram of Earth's blue marble, small against the vast symbol of the Galactic Empire. For a brief moment, he felt the weight of every human eye watching from distant screens across the galaxy. A low, mechanical voice boomed across the hall. Ambassador Vale of Sol, your species stands accused of breaching the Concord of Peace through the militarization of your outer colonies. The sound vibrated through the air, shaking the light itself. You will answer to the council. Vale lifted his head slowly. The central dais was occupied by the high speaker of the council, a being made of translucent plates shifting over a core of liquid light. Its many eyes watched him with a cold patience. Around it sat the rulers of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, each one older than Earth's written history. Ryan's voice was calm. Before we answer, I have a question of my own. Where are our children? The question spread through the hall like an electric pulse. Delegates turned to each other, whispering in confusion. The high speaker paused, the light inside its core flickering uneasily. Clarify your accusation, Ambassador. Our colonies in the Thal system reported disappearances, Ryan said evenly. Over 300 human children taken from research stations, mining worlds, and transport ships. Every trace leads back to the Empire's laboratories in your protected sectors. Are you telling me the Council did not know? The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the air recyclers seemed to stop. Across the chamber, one alien delegate, its skin like black glass, shifted nervously. Another delegate's bioluminescent stripes dimmed. Ryan saw it then. Guilt or fear? The high speaker replied with artificial calm. Such matters are beneath this body's jurisdiction. If individuals have acted unlawfully, the Empire will investigate. Ryan smiled faintly. That is not good enough. Every camera in the chamber turned to focus on him. His voice grew stronger, carrying a tone that made even the veterans of countless wars glance up. 4,000 years ago, humanity swore never to wage war again. We joined this council, we accepted your rules, we learned your languages, your politics, your diplomacy, and we trusted you. Now our children are gone, and all you give us is silence. A surge of alien murmurs filled the air. The high speaker leaned forward, its light flaring white. Do you threaten this council, human? No, Ryan said quietly. I remind it. On a nearby observation platform, a group of aides from other species watched uneasily. One whispered, humans are cornered animals. They sound calm, but they're always thinking 3 moves ahead. The high speaker straightened. Humanity's emotional instability is the reason your weapons were sealed. The Concord exists to preserve peace. Ryan's eyes narrowed. Peace, he repeated. Peace that allows the strong to take from the weak and call it lawful. Tell me, how long has this council's peace depended on silence? An old alien diplomat, his scales dull with age, spoke from the shadows. You forget your place, human. Ryan turned toward him. I am exactly where I belong. For a moment, everything was still. Then Ryan raised his wrist slightly, adjusting the cuff of his sleeve. A small pulse of light blinked once, then vanished. No one noticed, but far beyond the council's walls, signals rippled through the void, encrypted bursts reaching as far as Neptune's orbit. The high speaker's voice turned cold. You are dismissed, Ambassador Vale. The council will deliberate. Ryan gave a slow bow. Do that. But remember what you heard today. When the first human child was taken, your peace ended. He turned and walked toward the exit, the sound of his footsteps echoing like drumbeats in the vast hall. The alien delegates stared as the human disappeared through the great doors, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than any verdict. Outside the chamber, the view of the dying star burned across the glass corridors. Ryan stopped for a moment, staring at the sun's collapsing surface. He could see the Council's ships drifting like silver dust beyond the solar flares. His communicator pinged once, confirming that the transmission was complete. The message had reached Earth. In a quiet voice, he said, "Initiate Dawn Protocol." Back on Earth, in the deep bunkers beneath the old continents, alarms began to hum softly. Screens came alive across every major command center. The leaders of the Strategic Concord appeared in holographic form, scientists, admirals, philosophers, and AI entities whose logic shaped human defense for centuries. They didn't shout orders. They simply began to move the pieces. Mars Command opened its encrypted channels. The Europa colonies powered up long-sleeping defense satellites. The vast Titan shipyards began testing engines that had not fired in 4,000 years. Humanity had always planned for peace. But deep in their archives, they had never erased their blueprints for war. Back in the Council's city station, unease spread among the delegates. Rumors circulated that the humans had deployed something in secret, an invisible weapon, a hidden fleet, something that even the Council's vast intelligence networks could not detect. Others dismissed it as human bluffing. Yet deep down, many remembered the stories of Earth's wars, the ones told as warnings to children. In a quiet corridor, a small alien aide hurried to deliver a report to her superior. She spoke quickly, her voice trembling. The human envoy's transmission, it was not just a distress call. It was a code activation, something ancient. Her superior's skin turned pale. "Are you certain?" "Yes, the message was labeled Dawn Protocol." He froze. Everyone in the galaxy knew the legend of that phrase. It was the rumored contingency humanity created during the early days of their entry into the Council, a hidden command that could mobilize their entire civilization under one will. No one had ever believed it was real, until now. Hours later, on Earth's moon, a deep sensor array detected the faint movement of human fleets emerging from hidden bases beneath the lunar crust. Thousands of ships, sleek, silent, and dark, aligned themselves in formation around the planet, forming a luminous web that stretched into the void. Each carried the insignia of a world that once swore never to fight again. Back in the Council chamber, the High Speaker reviewed the reports. "The humans are mobilizing," it said softly, disbelief threading its tone. "They wouldn't dare." A lower official whispered, "Then why do we suddenly detect the energy signatures of 20 Titan-class vessels near their star?" The High Speaker's lights dimmed. "Send a message to the Empire. Tell them their actions have awakened something we cannot control." Across the stars, as the first human warships rose from the dark side of Earth, the people of the galaxy watched in silence. Their peace had lasted for 4 millennia, guarded by treaties and fear of the Council's power. But that peace had been built on the belief that humans would never fight again. Now, with the quiet precision of a predator long asleep, humanity moved. Ambassador Ryan Vale stood before the viewport of his ship as it departed the Council's orbit. The red light of the dying star flickered across his face. He whispered to himself, "They think this is rage." It isn't. It's memory. The ship vanished into hyperspace, leaving the Council world behind in a swirl of starlight. The age of peace was over. The galaxy had taken humanity's children, and humanity was coming to take them back. The chamber of the Galactic Council shone like a star trapped in glass. Every surface pulsed with slow, golden light as the representatives of 1,000 civilizations filled the tiers. The sound of wings, gills, metallic breathing, and shifting scales echoed under the great dome. In the center of this vast circle stood a single human, Ambassador Mara Elan of Earth, small against the towering architecture of the galaxy's oldest authority. The High Speaker's voice rippled through the air. "Ambassador of Sol, humanity has ignored repeated summons. You will answer for your fleets moving beyond your assigned borders." Mara did not flinch. Her pale eyes scanned the chamber with quiet precision. Around her, the alien delegates whispered among themselves, some watching with curiosity, others with contempt. Humans were still the youngest members of the Council, and yet they stood here accused of defying it. "Before I answer," she said calmly, her voice carrying through the hall. "Tell me if you found them." The speaker's glow dimmed slightly. "You refer to the abducted offspring of your kind?" "Yes," Mara replied. 312 human children taken from our outer colonies. I want their location." The speaker hesitated, its luminous plates shifting uneasily. "The Council has no confirmation of their whereabouts." "That's not true," Mara said softly. Her tone was steady, but every syllable cut the silence like a blade. "We traced the signals. We intercepted your transports. We know the Empire took them under your protection." The counselors stirred. Some blinked their multiple eyes in shock. Others stayed motionless, pretending not to hear. A silver-scaled delegate spoke. "Ambassador, such claims are dangerous. You risk igniting war." Mara turned her gaze to him. "War was ignited the moment the first child vanished." Gasps rippled across the hall. The speaker's lights brightened to a harsh white. "Humanity's emotional volatility is known to us all. Do not test this council's patience. We have maintained peace for 4 millennia." Mara looked around the chamber slowly. "Peace?" she said. "You call it peace when the strong steal from the weak and the weak stay silent to survive? That isn't peace. It's obedience." An ancient creature with wings like stained glass leaned forward. "Your words verge on defiance, Ambassador." Mara's reply came without hesitation. "Defiance is not rebellion. It is truth spoken aloud." The speaker raised its crystalline hand. "The Council will deliberate. Humanity will stand down." Mara's expression didn't change. "Then deliberate quickly. Because Earth already knows." At those words, murmurs broke into a storm. Dozens of delegates began shouting through their translators, demanding explanations. The speaker's voice thundered, trying to restore order, but the noise only grew. In the chaos, Mara stepped back from the center circle, her calm mask never breaking. Outside the chamber, in the cold silence of the orbital city, the human envoy ship waited. Its sleek hull bore no markings, only a faint glow where its engines slept. Inside, encrypted channels were open, signals flowing back to Earth through deep space relays. On Earth, under the calm blue light of the Pacific Defense Hub, rows of officials and commanders stood around a circular table. Holograms of star maps rotated slowly in the air above them. Admiral Keandre watched the council feed in silence, his face unreadable. "So they denied it," he said quietly. "They lied," answered one of the analysts. "We've confirmed Empire ships in restricted space. They used council clearance codes." Dre nodded once. "Then it's time." He turned to a wall console and keyed a sequence. Across the room, soft alarms began to pulse. Quiet, deliberate tones that spread across every human command center on Earth, Mars, and the moons of Jupiter. Thousands of officers looked up as red lights bathed their stations. The words Dawn Protocol appeared across their displays. No one spoke. They had trained for this signal their entire lives, but never believed they would see it. In orbit above Mars, massive defense satellites shifted their orbits. Hidden engines came alive on ancient carriers that had been silent for centuries. In the frozen shipyards of Titan, engineers watched as the first Titan-class warship began to hum with power, its reactor core igniting like the heart of a newborn star. Humanity's fleets had always been smaller than the Council's, but no one truly knew what they could do. For 4,000 years, humans had hidden their full technology behind trade treaties and research agreements, pretending weakness to avoid fear. Now the disguise was gone. Back at the Council, Mara's personal communicator buzzed once. She didn't look at it. She didn't need to. She already knew what the signal meant. The speaker's voice boomed again. "Ambassador Ilan, you will return to your world. You are ordered to cease all unauthorized fleet movements." Mara met the speaker's many eyes. "You can't order what you no longer control." A low hum spread through the hall as delegates activated their data links. Reports flooded in, unconfirmed but terrifying. Human fleets were moving, entire relay networks were going dark. Council border patrols had lost contact with outposts near Sol. The speaker rose, its body flaring with light. "You would bring war upon us all?" Mara's answer was almost a whisper. "You already did." She turned and walked out as the council erupted into chaos. The sound of her footsteps echoed like the toll of a bell across the marble floor. Outside, the human envoy ship detached from the station, its engines lighting up like blue fire. It drifted away from the Council's orbit, slow and silent, before vanishing into faster-than-light transit. In deep space, Admiral Dre watched from his flagship as fleets assembled around Earth. Thousands of vessels emerged from the dark, ships from Mars, from Europa, from colonies hidden beneath frozen moons and asteroid belts. They aligned in perfect order, no shouting, no rush. Humanity's military machine moved like a single thought. An officer approached. "All fleets are in position, sir. Awaiting final authorization." Dre looked out at the blue glow of Earth below. "Authorization granted. Begin Phase 1. Energy readings flared across the system as human ships engaged their warp arrays. Whole sectors of space folded under their engines. Within minutes, they disappeared from local sensors, their destinations unknown. In the Council's command network, chaos turned to fear. Dozens of species demanded answers. The Empire's delegation accused humanity of declaring war. Others accused the Empire of starting it. The entire structure of the galaxy's peace began to tremble. The High Speaker called an emergency meeting, its voice quivering with restrained anger. "Find the human fleets. Intercept them before they strike. They must be reminded of their place." But even as it spoke, an aide approached with a shaking hand. "Speaker," she said, "they've already reached Empire space." The speaker froze. "Impossible. The distances. 3 of our relay stations have gone dark. The humans use slip-space corridors we didn't know existed." The chamber fell into silence. For the first time in centuries, the Council faced an enemy it could not predict. Humanity had broken no laws of physics, only assumptions. They had spent their centuries of peace studying the stars, learning every weakness, every blind spot. They had never been asleep. They had been waiting. In her ship, Ambassador Mara Ilan watched the stars blur into light. She thought of the children still missing, their faces unknown but real. She remembered the hollow words of the Council, the way they had looked through her as if her kind were already forgotten. A young aide beside her spoke in fear. "What if this starts something we can't stop?" Mara looked out at the glowing corridor of hyperspace. It already has. Far away, in the darkness beyond the Empire's border, humanity's fleets unfolded into real space. The first engagement began without sound or warning. Empire outposts vanished in white light, their signals cut before alarms could sound. Across the galaxy, the message was clear. Humanity had not risen in anger. They had risen in judgment. Back in the Council chamber, the High Speaker looked at the incoming reports, its light flickering like a candle in a storm. "They have awakened," it whispered, "and we do not know how to stop them." In the silence that followed, every alien delegate turned their gaze toward the small hologram of Earth glowing at the center of the hall. The blue planet spun quietly, fragile and bright, yet now it radiated something that every world in the galaxy suddenly remembered, but had long forgotten. Fear. The age of calm had ended. Humanity had spoken not with words, but with movement, and the galaxy listened. The Galactic Council chamber burned with light as if a sun had been trapped inside. Thousands of delegates shimmered in their floating seats, bodies of crystal, fur, metal, and light forming a living sea of color. They had gathered in emergency session, every species across the known galaxy watching through live broadcasts. In the center, under a blinding white beam, stood a single human, Ambassador Kira Holt of Earth. Her hands were clasped behind her back. Her posture was calm, almost too calm for someone surrounded by the oldest powers in existence. The High Speaker's voice thundered through the air. "Ambassador Holt, humanity stands accused of unauthorized aggression. Entire Empire fleets have vanished. Communication relays are destroyed. Worlds are silent. Explain this." Kira raised her head slowly. Her expression was neutral, but her eyes glowed with something sharper than defiance. Certainty. "Explain?" she said softly. "You want me to explain why your fleet stopped existing?" The hall stirred with outrage. The speaker's glow flared red. "You admit responsibility?" "I admit nothing," Kira said. "I only remind you that humanity asked for help. We begged for justice when our children were taken. You refused. You called us unstable, dangerous. You told us to wait. So we did." Her words rippled through the chamber. The council members whispered to their aides, their translators hissing with hurried conversation. The high speaker leaned forward. "What are you implying?" Kira stepped closer to the center of the light. "I'm implying that you mistook our silence for weakness." The speaker's lights flickered in irritation. "You think your species can challenge the peace that has lasted 4,000 years? Kira smiled faintly. "You think peace is something you keep by fear. We keep it by choice. That's the difference." An insectoid delegate with a silver carapace clicked its mandibles. "You cannot win. Your worlds are too few. Your fleet's too small. The council will crush you before your next sunrise." Kira looked straight at the creature. "Then why are your ships already retreating?" The chamber erupted in confusion. Dozens of delegates shouted over each other. Reports streamed into their data channels. Alarms began to echo faintly from the upper decks of the council's orbital city. Kira tilted her head slightly, as if listening to something far away. "That sound you hear," she said softly, "is your peace breaking." She turned and walked away. The doors to the chamber sealed behind her, muffling the chaos inside. She didn't look back. In her ear, the quiet voice of the Earth Command AI whispered through the secure line. "Operation Ember is complete. 18 fleets neutralized. Minimal casualties." "Good," Kira said. "Proceed to Phase 2. On the other side of the galaxy, the war had already begun. The Empire's defense sectors lit up with silent explosions. Human fleets appeared out of nowhere, emerging from folded space in perfect synchronization. They didn't use the established jump lanes or the standard warp corridors. They carved their own routes through gravity wells, moving unpredictably beyond the understanding of the Empire's sensors. Entire planetary garrisons vanished before they even detected an approach. In the command hub of the Empire's capital, panic spread. Admirals shouted over one another as maps updated with red markers vanishing one by one. "They're using technology we don't recognize," cried one. "Their drives shouldn't even be possible," shouted another. The Grand Strategist, an ancient being whose species once ruled the stars, could only whisper, "They were peaceful for too long." They had time to think. Above one of the burning worlds, Admiral Joran of the human fleet stood on the bridge of the warship Helios. The view before him was a storm of light, destroyed enemy ships drifting like dying embers. His officers worked in silence, eyes fixed on their consoles. "Status?" Joran asked. "All targets neutralized." "Civilian sectors untouched," his aide replied. Joran nodded. "Good, no unnecessary losses. We're not here to conquer. We're here to remind them." In orbit over another world, a fleet of human drones activated, silent and invisible. They carried no pilots, no signals, only commands written directly into quantum code. They moved like ghosts, slicing through enemy communication relays and defense grids without leaving a trace. Everywhere, the same message appeared on enemy screens before systems went dark. "Return what you took." Back at the council, the chamber was in uproar. The speaker's voice broke through the storm of noise. "They've attacked 27 systems in less than an hour." "How are they doing this?" No one answered. Every representative stared at the central display, watching as human fleets moved in perfect formation, each strike surgically precise. There was no chaos, no desperation, only control. An elder delegate whispered, "They must have prepared this for centuries." Another hissed, "No, they learned from us." They studied our arrogance. Kira stood in a quiet observation deck high above the chaos. Below her, the stars burned cold. She could see the glow of the Empire's frontier worlds flickering in and out like dying candles. She didn't smile. She only breathed slowly, her expression unreadable. A young officer approached her. "Council channels are demanding a ceasefire. They claim they'll investigate the abductions if we stand down." Kira looked at the stars. "They don't negotiate until they're afraid. Let them reach that point first." The officer hesitated. "And if they retaliate? Then they'll finally understand why we stopped fighting 4,000 years ago," she said quietly. "It wasn't because we couldn't. It was because we shouldn't. On a distant moon, deep inside a captured laboratory, human ground forces breached the walls. Inside, they found rows of containment pods glowing faint blue. Inside each one, small figures, children. The lead soldier stared at them in silence. "Command, we found them," he said over comms. "They're alive." The voice from Earth responded softly. "Bring them home." When the news reached Kira, she stood motionless for several seconds. Then she turned to her aide. "Broadcast this to the Council. Every world must see what they did." Soon, every screen in the galaxy displayed the truth. The captured human children, the Empire insignias on the laboratories, the experiments, the lies. The image spread faster than any weapon. Empires that had once mocked humanity now stood silent. In the council chamber, the speaker watched the footage with flickering light. "They will never forgive us," it said. An elder delegate replied, "They shouldn't." Within hours, entire systems began cutting ties with the Empire. Some declared neutrality. Others offered quiet apologies to humanity. The balance of power was collapsing. Kira stood aboard her ship as it sailed through the void. Her communicator blinked. It was a message from Earth Command. Phase 2 complete. The children are safe. The Empire requests negotiations. She read it twice, then sent her reply. No negotiations until every system that allowed this stands trial. Her aide asked softly, "And if they refuse?" Kira looked out at the stars. "Then they'll see what humans can do when they've been betrayed." The galaxy had believed that humanity's strength was in their technology or their weapons. They were wrong. Humanity's power was patience, the kind that could wait millennia before striking with absolute precision. The war wasn't waged with rage. It was waged with purpose. Across the stars, the last human fleets aligned in silent formation. Their hulls glowed with blue light, casting reflections across the dark. They didn't broadcast threats or messages. They didn't demand surrender. They simply waited, a silent wall of light surrounding the Empire's heart. In the council chamber, the High Speaker whispered into the silence, "If they don't stop." "The conquered will fall," another delegate answered, trembling. "The conquered has already fallen. We just didn't notice when." Outside, in the endless dark, the human ships began to move again. Not in anger, not in revenge, in justice. The galaxy watched, helpless and silent, as humanity reminded them that peace was never their gift to give. It had always been humanity's choice, and that choice was now withdrawn. The chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered with ethereal light, carved from transparent crystal that reflected the colors of 100 suns. The hall stretched for miles, its floor a living surface of flowing energy. Floating seats surrounded the central stage where thousands of alien delegates observed in silent judgment. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made even the air itself seem afraid to move. At the center, 3 humans stood beneath a focused beam of light. Ambassador Leon Vale, Commander Iris Grant, and linguist Dr. Arun Keller faced the assembly. They were Earth's first official representatives to the Council. The eyes of the galaxy were upon them. The High Speaker rose from its throne of shifting light. It had no face, only a column of energy that pulsed as it spoke. "Humans of soul, you stand before the collective will of 10,000 worlds. Your world has expanded without authorization. Your colonies appear beyond the neutral zones. You have violated the compact." Leon's expression didn't change. He stood tall, hands folded behind him, wearing the simple uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. "With respect, High Speaker," he said, his voice calm, "the compact predates our contact with the Council. We cannot violate a law we were never given." The chamber filled with murmurs, some shocked, some amused. A serpentine delegate hissed, "Ignorance is not innocence, human." Leon turned slightly, his voice measured. "Perhaps not. But neither is arrogance wisdom." A ripple spread across the chamber. The High Speaker's glow dimmed slightly. "You dare insult this assembly?" Leon looked directly into the light. "No, I'm simply reminding you that humanity is new, not naive." The silence that followed was deep enough to be felt. For a moment, no one spoke. The council had faced countless species before. Some begged for mercy, others demanded acceptance. But none had ever stood so calm beneath the scrutiny of the universe's oldest powers. The High Speaker finally said, "You speak as if you are equals." Leon answered softly, "We are not equals yet, but we will be." The hall erupted with noise, outrage, laughter, disbelief. Delegates shouted in 100 different tongues. Iris stood motionless beside Leon, her eyes sweeping across the crowd. She wasn't a diplomat. She was a strategist, and she was studying reactions like battlefield movements. Aaron's fingers moved subtly on the small translator interface in his hand, recording every word, every tone, every alien expression. Finally, the High Speaker raised a glowing hand and silenced the room. "You will explain your actions. Why has your species built colonies in restricted sectors? Why do you hide your military vessels behind civilian fronts?" Leon's tone remained calm. "Because we were warned about you long before we met you." The speaker paused. "Warned?" "By your history," Leon said. "By the ruins of the species that stood here before us." Every delegate froze. Even the ever-shifting lights of the chamber seemed to flicker for a second. Iris stepped forward. "We found their remains," she said, her voice firm. "Entire civilizations erased, names you no longer speak, records you've buried. You call yourselves the keepers of peace, but you build that peace on silence." An insectoid delegate screeched in protest. "Lies! Humanity fabricates myths to justify expansion." Aaron touched his interface. The lights dimmed, and holographic projections filled the chamber. Images of ancient cities buried beneath alien soil. Fossilized remains of unknown species. Weapons older than the Council itself. "These were found," Aaron said, "on Council-protected worlds. The same pattern repeated. Cultures erased after they questioned your authority." The High Speaker's form rippled violently. "Cease this display!" But Leon didn't move. "You claim peace through control. We claim peace through choice. If that makes us a threat, then perhaps it's your system that's unstable." The chamber descended into chaos. Dozens of delegates shouted at once, some demanding humanity's expulsion, others calling for an investigation. The High Speaker's glow turned crimson. "You have made a grave error, human. You stand before forces that could erase your world in a moment." Leon took a single step forward, his expression unreadable. "And yet you won't." "Explain yourself," the speaker demanded. "Because if you could," Leon said, "you already would have." A chilling silence followed. Iris's gaze shifted upward, toward the vast ceiling where surveillance drones floated. She knew billions across the galaxy were watching this moment. The message was not for the Council. It was for the people who lived under it. Leon raised his hand slightly. "We came here not to beg for acceptance. We came to remind this Council that power does not equal right. Humanity will not be ruled. We will cooperate, but we will not kneel." The speaker's light trembled with fury. "You speak rebellion." Leon shook his head. "I speak reason." "You've forgotten what it means to earn respect." The speaker gestured sharply. Guards appeared at the edges of the chamber, towering mechanical beings of metal and light. The order was clear. Arrest them. Before they could move, Iris pressed a small device on her wrist. The chamber's lights flickered once more, and every communication channel in the hall went dark. The Council's entire network froze. Even the High Speaker's signal stuttered. "What have you done?" it roared. Leon looked up at the flickering energy around them. "A demonstration. You call us primitive, yet your systems run on patterns we cracked decades ago." Gasps filled the hall. Delegates leaned back in disbelief as the humans stood untouched at the center of their grand chamber, surrounded by silenced technology. "We didn't come to fight," Leon said quietly. "We came to warn you. Humanity is not what you think." Then the lights stabilized again, and the Council's control systems reactivated. But the damage was done. Every representative had seen it. Every world had witnessed the moment when 3 humans disabled the heart of the most powerful government in existence. The speaker's voice returned, now lower and almost cautious. "You play a dangerous game." Leon nodded slightly. "So does everyone who forgets they can lose." Security forces surrounded the humans but did not attack. Protocol prevented violence during diplomatic hearings, and the council couldn't risk being seen as aggressors. The silence in the chamber was thick with fear and confusion. Leon turned to leave. "We will await your decision on Earth," he said calmly. "But understand this, humanity will not withdraw from the stars. If you want our compliance, you'll need to earn our trust first." As they walked out, whispers followed them, fearful, uncertain, admiring. Delegates from minor worlds stared after them, their minds racing. Some had lived under the council's shadow for centuries, their species kept weak and obedient. For the first time, they saw defiance that did not end in destruction. Outside, the massive halls of the council's orbital station echoed with the faint hum of engines and whispers of alien tongues. Iris glanced back once. "You realize you just declared war with diplomacy?" Leon smiled faintly. "No, I just reminded them that peace has two sides. Far away on Earth, the human networks lit up with the broadcast. Billions watched their representatives stand unbroken before the most powerful empire in the galaxy. And across countless alien worlds, suppressed voices whispered in private channels, 'If humans can stand, so can we.'" The high speaker remained alone in the chamber after the humans departed. The silence felt heavy. A smaller delegate approached quietly. "Should we prepare the fleets?" it asked. The speaker's light dimmed. "No, not yet. The humans have changed something." "What do you mean?" The speaker gazed toward the dark horizon beyond the chamber's dome, where the stars glowed like watching eyes. "They've reminded the galaxy that the council is not eternal. That power can be challenged. That fear can fade." And somewhere deep in that vast silence, as the council deliberated its next move, the universe shifted ever so slightly, because 3 humans had dared to stand beneath the judgment of 1,000 worlds and say no. The light of the council chamber burned white, cold, and unyielding. It poured down like judgment itself, illuminating the 3 figures standing at the center of the great floor. All around them, the air shimmered with tension. The walls were alive with movement, shifting banners of alien languages, floating sigils of empires older than Earth itself. Each delegate's gaze was fixed on the humans standing under that merciless light. Ambassador Leon Vale's voice carried across the chamber, steady and clear. "You wanted a reason to understand humanity. You will have it now." The high speaker leaned forward from its throne of light. "You are accused of defying the compact. You are accused of spreading rebellion. You are accused of weaponizing information." Leon didn't flinch. "And you are accused," he said softly, "of kidnapping human children." The chamber went silent. The kind of silence that cracked through even the loudest thoughts. Dozens of alien representatives froze. Others exchanged low, uneasy sounds. "You make a dangerous accusation," the speaker said, its light flickering sharply. "Dangerous, yes," Leon replied, "but not false. 22 of our young were taken from the outer colonies, tracked to a system under your control. We sent envoys. None returned." The speaker's light pulsed violently. "You presume too much, human? The council does not traffic in lesser species. Then explain why our ships found your insignia burned into the walls of their prison. The projection screens came alive, showing the images, grimy metal corridors, alien devices, and small human forms in stasis pods. The council chamber erupted into noise. Delegates shouted, argued, denied. Some turned their gaze away. Leon waited for the chaos to calm, then spoke again, his voice cutting through the uproar like steel. "We came here in peace. We accepted your laws. We followed your rules. But you took our children. That ends now." The high speaker's voice rose like thunder. "You are not in a position to demand anything." Leon's gaze was unwavering. "No, we're not demanding. We're declaring." A cold hum filled the air. Every delegate turned as a faint tremor shook the chamber. The speaker's glow dimmed. "What have you done?" "Nothing," Leon said. "Yet." Outside the great council station, invisible to the naked eye, hundreds of human ships decloaked across the void. Silent, dark, and angular, they formed a wall of steel and will around the council's homeworld. Their presence rippled across every communication network, every sensor feed. The speaker's tone grew harsh. You bring war to the heart of the galaxy? Leon's eyes held an icy calm. We bring consequences. Iris, standing beside him, placed a small device on the floor. It blinked once, then projected a map of human-controlled sectors, each one surrounded by moving fleets. We did not come here to destroy, she said. But understand this. If one more child is taken, if one more colony is touched, there will be no council left to stand in judgment. The speaker trembled with rage. You would break 4,000 years of peace over this? Leon looked straight into the blinding light. Yes, the words hit the chamber like a strike. For the first time in the council's long history, silence meant fear, not authority. Dr. Aaron Keller stepped forward, voice quiet but steady. You see humanity is fragile because we are young. But you forget what youth brings: hope, fury, and the refusal to accept submission. We do not seek conquest. We seek justice. The speaker's form wavered. Your kind cannot survive a war against the galaxy. Leon's tone grew even. Then the galaxy should pray we never give it one. In that moment, the entire council chamber flickered with light, screens flashing alerts, sensors detecting unknown signals. Iris's communicator vibrated once. She checked it, then nodded subtly to Leon. He took a slow breath. You see, we know who took them. The speaker's glow dimmed, uncertain. Explain. Leon turned the hologram forward, showing a different symbol, one belonging to the Varn Dominion, an ancient member race of the Council, known for their cruelty and biological experiments. The Varn, one of your oldest allies. They took our children, and you covered for them. The Varn delegate rose, its tall, spindly body quivering. Lies! Propaganda! Leon stepped closer, voice low. Then tell me, Varn, why our DNA markers were found inside your research outpost. Tell me why you sealed the system before our recovery teams arrived. The Varn delegate froze. The silence that followed was worse than any shouting. The high speaker's light trembled, uncertain now. If this is true, it violates every law of the compact. Then enforce it, Leon said. Prove that this council still believes in its own rules, the speaker hesitated. Thousands of species watched through the interstellar network. Every gesture, every pause would be seen and remembered. To ignore the accusation would expose weakness. To act would acknowledge humanity's influence. Finally, the speaker said, The Varn Dominion will face trial. We will investigate your claims. Leon nodded slowly. Good, because if you don't, we will. The council erupted again, chaos sweeping through the chamber. But something had shifted. For the first time, the council didn't seem like the center of power. It seemed afraid. Afraid of what humanity might do next. As the humans turned to leave, the speaker's voice called out again, quieter now. Ambassador Vale, why do you care so deeply for a few children? You risk your species for them. Leon stopped at the threshold. Because that's what makes us human, he said. We don't abandon our own. Outside, the stars glowed cold and distant, but the void was no longer quiet. Human fleets spread through the dark like constellations of iron. The broadcast of the council confrontation spread through every inhabited world in the galaxy. Civilizations that had lived in silence began to whisper, then shout. If humanity could defy the council, maybe they could too. On Earth, the oceans reflected the light of orbiting carriers. Crowds gathered in cities across the planet watching the declaration replay over and over. It became a promise. Humanity would not be prey. Meanwhile, deep within the Varn Dominion, their ships began to vanish, silently, one by one. No one knew how or who, but whispers spread that human special units had already begun their work. A shadow war had started before any declaration was made. In the council's grand hall, the speaker met with its advisors in secret. They are dangerous, one said. They act like gods. They act, the speaker murmured, like those who have nothing left to fear. The advisor shivered. Shall we prepare the fleets? The speaker stared into the darkness of space, where the faint lights of human ships gleamed like watchful eyes. No, it said. Not yet. They are unpredictable. Let them believe they have won. For now. But even as it spoke, it knew the truth. The balance had broken. 4,000 years of enforced peace had cracked under the weight of one species' fury. In the Sol system, Leon stood aboard the flagship Resolute, watching Earth spin slowly below. Iris approached quietly. "You realize what we've done," she said. He nodded. "Yes, we've woken the galaxy." Aaron joined them, holding a transmission. "The Council's investigation has begun, but it's only for show. The Varn are moving fleets." Leon didn't look surprised. "Then so are we. Do you think we can win?" Arun asked. Leon looked out at the stars. "Win?" He shook his head slowly. "We're not fighting to win. We're fighting to make sure no one forgets what happens when humanity is crossed." Iris smiled faintly. "Then the age of peace really is over." Leon's voice was calm, but his eyes were cold as the void. "No, peace isn't over. It's just changing hands." The ships of Earth moved into formation, silent as ghosts. Across the galaxy, worlds stirred, alliances shifted, and the Council that once ruled unchallenged felt fear for the first time in its long existence. In the far distance, beyond the glow of the core worlds, a child's voice echoed through a transmission recovered from the void. A young human whisper, recorded from captivity, now replayed across the stars. "Tell them," the child said softly. "We're not afraid." That voice reached every ship, every colony, every listening ear. And in that moment, humanity stopped being a small world among giants. It became something else, an idea that even the oldest powers could no longer control. The Council had stolen their children. In return, humanity had taken their peace, and the galaxy would never be the same again.